For as long as Kalen could remember, he had been nothing more than a slave, a human among aliens who regarded him as little more than a tool. Day after day, he polished the spears of the Xylurian warriors, each one heavier and deadlier than the last. His hands were calloused, his back ached, and his spirit had been forged into quiet obedience. The Xylurian citadel was a place of tradition and power, where humans were seen as expendable, their lives meant only to serve the ambitions of alien kings and generals. Yet Kalen endured, knowing that survival required silence, humility, and the patience to wait for something he could not name. Every spear in the armory was more than a weapon, it was a symbol of lineage, of honor, and of the might of the Xylurian Empire. Kalen had polished thousands, each reflecting the flickering torchlight like a shard of a sun that never touched him. And yet, for all his years of service, he had never felt seen. His existence was unremarkable, as if he were air itself, necessary but unnoticed. The other slaves whispered among themselves about the futility of his life, the impossibility of ever being chosen, ever being more than a tool. And Kalen had learned to nod silently, never dreaming of anything beyond the cold stone walls of the citadel. Then, one evening, as the twin moons rose above the jagged horizon, Kalen was polishing a particularly ancient spear, one said to have belonged to the first Xylurian king. The weapon vibrated faintly under his touch, and suddenly, heat surged through the metal, scorching his palms. Pain shot up his arms, yet he could not let go. And then it happened, the spear's light flared like a star caught in a storm, and in that instant, Kalen felt it choose him. The pain became fire in his veins, and his eyes widened as he understood, this was no ordinary weapon. It recognized him. It had judged his spirit, his resilience, and somehow his heart. Word spread quickly through the citadel. A human had been chosen. The elders and generals gathered, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and awe. The spear, a weapon that had only ever answered to the mightiest Xylurian, had never before selected a human. Kalen stood before the council, trembling yet steady, feeling the weight of destiny settle on his shoulders. He did not know what lay ahead, only that the life of a polished slave was over, replaced by something both terrifying and exhilarating. Then, one evening, as the twin moons rose above the jagged horizon, Kalen was polishing a particularly ancient spear, one said to have belonged to the first Xylurian king. The weapon vibrated faintly under his touch, and suddenly, heat surged through the metal, scorching his palms. Pain shot up his arms, yet he could not let go. And then it happened, the spear's light flared like a star caught in a storm, and in that instant, Kalen felt it choose him. The pain became fire in his veins, and his eyes widened as he understood, this was no ordinary weapon. It recognized him. It had judged his spirit, his resilience, and somehow his heart. Word spread quickly through the citadel. A human had been chosen. The elders and generals gathered, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and awe. The spear, a weapon that had only ever answered to the mightiest Xylurian, had never before selected a human. Kalen stood before the council, trembling yet steady, feeling the weight of destiny settle on his shoulders. He did not know what lay ahead, only that the life of a polished slave was over, replaced by something both terrifying and exhilarating. Warriors, absorbing the lessons that had once seemed distant and irrelevant. He was no longer the silent slave. He was something new, an agent of change, a bridge between human ingenuity and alien tradition. The first true test came when the Deathworld Reavers, a legendary alien raiding fleet, descended upon the Xylurian colonies. Their ships darkened the skies, and their warriors, armored like living nightmares, struck with precision and terror. Kalen, wielding the chosen spear, stood at the front line, his human instincts guiding him in ways the Xylurian generals had never anticipated. He moved unpredictably, striking at vulnerabilities that their enemies had never even considered. The spear burned with a light that cut through the chaos, almost as if it were alive, amplifying his movements and protecting him from fatal blows. Amid the battle, Kalen found himself facing the Reaver commander, a towering alien whose reputation alone was enough to make Xylurian soldiers hesitate. The commander mocked him, calling him a slave, a joke among humans, but Kalen did not flinch. He let the spear guide him, its light flaring as he dodged and countered with precision. With a final, decisive strike, the commander fell, and the Reaver fleet, seeing their leader defeated by a human, faltered. Victory, once impossible, had been achieved. Kalen stood among the Xylorean warriors, no longer a slave but a symbol of hope, strength, and the unexpected potential of humans. News of his feat spread rapidly. The Xylorean king summoned Kalen to the throne room, where the grand chambers echoed with whispers of disbelief. "You human," the king said, "have done what none of our greatest warriors could. You have proven that courage and skill are not limited by species." Kalen knelt instinctively, a gesture of respect learned in his years of servitude. The king raised a hand. "Rise. You are no longer a slave. You are our champion, our emissary, and our protector. You bear not just the spear but the honor of our empire." Yet Kalen's journey was far from over. The spear had chosen him, yes, but with choice came responsibility. He trained tirelessly, forging alliances with alien nobles, learning the subtleties of diplomacy, and navigating the treacherous currents of court intrigue. The same factions that had doubted him now watched with cautious respect, realizing that the human's presence was changing the Xylorean world. With every challenge, Kalen grew, not just as a warrior but as a leader. In the quiet moments, Kalen reflected on his transformation. The boy who had spent decades polishing spears had become something extraordinary. He understood that the spear had not simply chosen him for its own power, it had recognized the human spirit, the persistence, ingenuity, and courage that could shape the destiny of a civilization. What had once been servitude had become mastery. What had been invisibility had become legacy. Years passed and Kalen's name became legendary across the stars. Humans and Xyloreans alike spoke of the slave who became a hero, the human who had earned the respect of kings, queens, and warriors. The spear, ever loyal, remained a symbol of that bond, a reminder that sometimes, destiny chooses the unexpected, and courage can rise from even the humblest beginnings. In the final moment of his journey, Kalen stood atop the citadel's highest tower, the twin moons casting their pale light across the empire. The wind carried the voices of warriors, allies, and friends, celebrating not just a victory but a new era. The human who had once been invisible now stood as a bridge between worlds, a testament to the power of resilience, courage, and the spark that could turn a lifetime of servitude into a legacy that would echo through history. The spear glowed softly in his hands, a quiet acknowledgement of a bond forged in fire, struggle, and trust. Kalen smiled, feeling the weight of responsibility and the light of possibility. He had been chosen, not merely by a weapon but by fate itself. And in that choice, he had discovered the truth every slave dreams of but few achieve, that even the smallest, quietest life can ignite a legend.